What do you think is the number one mistake people make when they first like someone? Actually, I'm going to give you three, but one just sounded like a good title. I am Bob Grant, relationship expert and best-selling author. And of all the things I've known, there are three things that when people like someone initially, it's the biggest mistake. They don't mean to make it, but they usually have good intentions. So if I'm talking about a first mistake, really what I mean is something that gets you off to a bad start. Something that starts a relationship that had promise, that actually leads to something that might give the wrong impression. Most of us think of a bad mistake as I said something really stupid or I blurted something out, embarrassing that I wish I shouldn't have said. One client came in one time and she had a date. She really liked the guy and was really excited, but she was nervous because she said, I said something I shouldn't have said. I thought, okay, well, what was it? And she said, oh, I shared something about my mom. And that's too much information on the first date. I said, well, what did you share about your mom? I was kind of nervous. She said, oh, she says that sometimes my mom and I disagree or sometimes my mom and I don't get along. I said, well, I don't think that's too bad. It depends on the context. Things like that I'm not worried about. The ones that most folks associated with is where you share personal information and it feels good and you share more and more and more. Okay, those most of us know not to do. But here are three things I found that if you'll keep an eye on these things, these are the ones that cause the biggest problem. So mistake number one when you really like someone is acting like you don't like them. I know you've been told, play it cool. I know you've been told to act like you're not interested. Problem is when you do that, that looks the same way as when you're not interested. And it's hard for a man to tell. Does it make you more appealing? It can make you more appealing. Most of the time when folks do this, they're trying to guard against not appearing too eager or like a puppy and just running toward them. If Susan is there on the date and she's with the guy and she likes him and she's nervous and she doesn't want to show it, what does she do? She gets quiet. Maybe she goes inward a little bit and maybe she makes it a point not to be too expressive. Again, that looks just like she's not interested. And the problem is in her mind, she knows she's interested. Surely the man can pick up on that. Surely he cannot. Because as a man, I don't know necessarily what all those things mean that you do, ladies. I don't necessarily know what quiet means or certain facial gestures mean. Remember, we don't want to leave it up to a man to have to guess. I've got a rule of thumb, which is this. If he's having to think, you lose. If he's having to guess, he's often going to guess wrong. So we don't want guessing with it. Mistake number two that folks do when they really like someone, especially women, is they overshare. Now, this may or may not apply to you depending on how much of an extrovert you are. A lot of women, I remember sitting one time with a group of women at work and all of us were around and I just happened to go down to the cafeteria with them and we're sitting there and I'm like the therapist in the group, the rest of them are support staff and they're talking and they're like talking to me like over each other. They're like someone's talking or someone jumps in and I'm watching this fascinated. Like, oh my gosh, how do they... Because if guys did that with each other the way they were doing it, it would just be like a fight. It would be, you're interrupting me in the middle of a sentence. It's why, what in the world are you doing? They just did, and they could remember what each other was saying. And what I found myself was, aside from being fascinated, was that I found it felt like I was flooded. And that being flooded thing was like too much information at once. When you're sharing with him and you like him and you want to connect with him, that's a lot of times the way women will connect. But if you do that with a man, that overwhelming part, he doesn't get a chance to participate. He hears a lot about you, and his fear is this the way it's always going to be? He doesn't know that you're nervous or excited or really like him. Probably can tell that. But he doesn't know exactly what to do with all that. You want to be able to let him participate. Here's something I'll do if I'm talking with a client, or even with a friend, is when I'm talking and sharing, I love what I'm sharing. What I'm sharing is awesome. What I'm sharing is amazing, right? As I'm sharing and just pouring stuff out, I know that listening is work. And because listening is work, I have to let the person listening not work so much. So there will be times when I'm talking, I will literally just stop and just pause. And it can go on 3 or 4 seconds. And what I'm looking for is, do they jump in and say something? Do they say yes, continue? Or do they just not say anything? Because if they don't say anything, what that tells me is they're full. I need to pause, probably giving them too much. It's not that what I'm saying isn't interesting, but they just need a little bit of a break. I haven't invited them in. And part of liking someone when you do this is you want to make this where you're inviting them closer towards you. So it doesn't mean if you're talkative, it doesn't mean don't talk. It just means keep an eye on that one and don't overdo it. And mistake number 3. Mistake number 3 is pretending to be the person you think they want you to be. Remember, when we like someone, it's very vulnerable. We want to actually have them approve of us, want to be with us, be interested in us, think about us long term. And what do we tend to do is we start to look and see what things we do get a positive reaction. Is it if I'm smiling a lot? Does he react positive to that? Okay, I should smile more. Is it when I'm listening? Okay, I should listen more. All those are good things. But when I find myself more worried about making a mistake and trying to become the person or the woman, if I'm a woman, that the man likes, you may end up winning him that way, but he's ending up falling in love with someone that isn't you. One woman that was real quiet, I've known her for years, and she was more shy, and some of that she needed to work on. Okay, not to be so, introverted where she just never took a chance. And she went out with a man and she thought it went well, but she wished she could have done better, and she's been making a point to be more outside of herself and take more risk. After the third or fourth date, she's worried. Seems like it's going well. She's so worried that now she's so focused on, oh my gosh, I can't be so introverted. Some of that was probably my fault that we had emphasized that so much. So I had to remind her, I said, remember, you're an introvert. You're quiet by nature. You're always going to have some of that. So you need to work on that some. Just like if you're an extrovert, we'd say, let's probably don't always take over a conversation. But we want this man to fall in love with you because you are quiet by nature. We want him to fall in love because of who you are as a person, not just who he thinks you are. So if him falling in love with you, if him wanting to be with you is because you're the most chatty person, does that mean you're going to have to be chatty the rest of your life? Because you can't do it. I mean, you can't. So we don't want, with mistake number 3, to try to please the other person and be someone we're not. We want to work on ourselves. We want to improve. We want to be growing, absolutely. We want to have any rough edges. Let's take a look at those. Any insecurities, let's face those. But we're always going to come back to the core of who we are. That's one of the things with coaching and counseling is we're not trying to change someone. We're trying to help you become more of who you are and remove those things that you do to either hide or give the wrong impression or keep you safe. That gets rid of the authentic part of you. So take a look at those 3 things. What I found is usually there's one of those 3 things that all of us are prone toward doing. And let's take a risk with our authentic self, because that's the best thing that's going to match with the man that's a good fit for you. Is are you two aligned, your authentic self with his authentic self? I know it will be a little bit of a challenge at times, but I promise you it's worth it. Stay tuned for the next video.